Hi, my dragons. This is part 2 of lecture 2. So, continuing, what is it that unites psychology? Okay, so uniting psychology is a drive to understand emotions, behaviors, thoughts, and all of their underlying processes. Shared themes, different themes in psychology, different perception, different fields, different subject matter, different research and application. So that's a uniting factor. So today, psychology is very flexible and applied, and the field is broadened. And there are a lot of psychologists working in very, very many diverse fields that you wouldn't even think you'd find psychologists. And there are psychologists that are employed in every federal agency, and all sorts of businesses, in the law, and medicine, and everything. So it's very cool. And if you're going to use myself as an example, I started out doing toxic tort research, forensic psychology. What does someone polluting the environment have to do with psychology? It has a lot to do with psychology because those are court cases. They go in front of a jury, and juries make decisions. They're cognitive processors, and there you go. There's your forensic psychology. But I've also done work in child sexual abuse, the clinical level and at the research level with court cases, developmental disabilities, clinical psychology, epidemiology. I'm currently doing research into COVID. So the applications are endless for psychology, and it's very interesting. So the key that binds psychology together as a science is research, and our commitment to science and research, because psychology is a science. So today, psychology is much more empirical, much more research-oriented, and much more applied than it was in the past. Okay? So those are the themes that unite psychology. So because I mentioned research, we're going to flow right into research psychology, which is chapter 1 of your book. So research psychology is also known as experimental psychology, and we have classes here, experimental psychology, and it's for those people who like to do research. And research is a lot of fun. I love to do research. I teach the research classes. Dr. Hurwitz loves to do research. Dr. Law loves to do research. So research is very interesting. I know a lot of people are interested in clinical psychology that looks at mental illnesses and assessment and profiling and behavior and stuff like that. But it doesn't go anywhere without the research. So the research is the starting point. So psychology uses research in many different ways, and here's 8 different ways. Number 1, okay, before we start that, I just want you to skim the research chapter. That's chapter 1. I don't want you to get heavy duty into it, because we do have a course in research, and just skim it, okay? So just know these things. Number 1, we use research to ask questions that we want to study, okay? We design research that looks at those questions and the best ways to answer those questions. That's called a design. And we generate more questions that we want the research to answer. We call those hypotheses, and then we test those hypotheses. So one of the ways we do that is to get data. And how do we get data? Well, we get data in a lot of different ways. We do observation. We do participant observation, where we participate in a study. We'll do questionnaires. We will do research where we analyze blood or heart rates or brain waves or something like that. So there's a lot of different ways to get data depending on how we design the research. So you're going to learn about a lot of different types of research and a lot of different ways to do research as we talk about the research in psychology. We also, number 3, we identify variables that we're interested in that are part of the study, and we manipulate those variables. We collect data on those variables in different ways. We statistically analyze that, and that's why you take statistics. But we're going to talk about statistics later on, because I know a lot of people are really afraid of statistics. There's nothing to be afraid of, and it'll be your best friend. I promise. You'll be able to use it and get employment anywhere, because everyone needs researchers. And especially if you're looking for a job in federal government or something like that, they're always looking to hire researchers all the time for analysts and things like that, especially intelligence analysts. And we draw conclusions based on the research, okay? We like to say the data, that nothing is the truth unless the data tells us it's the truth, okay? So it's all data-driven. We draw conclusions from the data, we make charts, we make graphs, and we describe stuff, phenomenon. That's called descriptive statistics. We want to know, what does the average think? What's the highest score? What's the lowest score? That kind of thing. And you describe the phenomenon. So certain statistics for that. And we also infer. We draw conclusions. Oh, we did this statistical test and it told us that this is not happening for no reason. It's happening because it's a bona fide thing that occurs in the field, and therefore we must pay attention to it. Then we write up and share those conclusions, and the way we do that is primarily we publish our research, the conclusions that we get from our research. When you publish it in a journal, you send it out to the readership, which are also other professors and also other scientists, and then they tear it apart, and you have lots of wars going on in the research journals about, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, that sort of thing. It's really interesting. Another way we do that is we present the research at conferences, and then you get that war happening in person, which is always a lot of fun and a great way to exchange information. And then the third way is to go into the community and show the community what your research is. Okay, so the president of the American Psychological Association really stressed that we should give psychology away, especially research psychology, so that people know what is a real effect and what is just a myth, or what is, propaganda, or doesn't have any basis in science. So that's a really cool thing. Going into the community is really important because it shows ordinary everyday people something about a phenomenon that they need to know. So one of the things you may find yourself doing when you get out of college is you work for an agency, and an agency wants to try something new and different. Even if you do work in psychology, you have a new therapy that you want to try. You have to prove to those powers that be, your agency, maybe the board of trustees, or the county commissioners or whatever, that this is a worthwhile thing to pursue. You're going to have research to back it up. So that's part of giving it away in the community. Did you do good research? Which, if your research is really good, you should have more questions at the end than answers, and that lays the groundwork for future studies and future research. Many experiments, if they come to the same conclusion, okay, then they're reliable, and then that becomes factual, okay? And so when a lot of studies show the same thing, then there's a fact, okay? So that's 1 through 7, and then 8. When there's a theory or there's something that you're studying, a particular phenomenon, and it changes. So you have all these studies that show X, and then someone else does a study and they show Y. Then you have to say, well, why did we get Y? Why didn't we get X again? Okay? So new research always will overthrow old research when we have new and better things to discover, new facts, new phenomenon, more research that has shown a different type of effect, which is really, really cool. So why do we do research? We do research because we need to know things. And if you didn't do research, then you wouldn't know things, and the world would be unknowable. And we can't live in an unknowable world. We want to describe our world. We want to infer certain things about our world. We want to be able to predict things. We want to be able to learn from our world, and we want to have our answers in data, provable facts in data. It gives you a better understanding of yourself, of others, of your culture, of the world, what is possible, okay? It is like on the threshold of greatness. So remember when we thought the world was flat? And Magellan, first person to circumnavigate the globe, he went out and said, hey, I'm not afraid, the world is not flat. I can see, this is what he said when they told him that the world was flat and that he was going to get himself and all his ships and all the people in the ships killed because they were just going to sail off the world. And he said, and the church said, the world is flat and this is the way it is. And he said, I believe the world is round because I have seen the shadow of the moon upon the earth, and it is circular and the world is round. Which didn't win him any favors with the powers that be at the time, and lo and behold, he went around the world, and guess what? The world was round. So we no longer believe that, see? That old myth was debunked by, a research finding. The Wright brothers, just imagine that thought. I'm going to just get in the sky and fly like a bird. Imagine how preposterous that was at the time. I'm just going to fly like a bird, and we're going to make something to make us fly like a bird. And everybody laughed at them, and because they had this spark of science and creativity, they tried it. And they tried it and tried it and tried it, and then it worked. They did research on the area. My favorite one is Henry Ford, who decided to make the car, and everybody was like, what are you making? The horse is good enough. My favorite story about Henry Ford is when he built the car, and it was beautiful, and he got it, and it was running, and it was working, and then he found out that he built it too big, and he couldn't get it out of his garage because his doors were too small. So even great scientists who do great things do mess up. So always be easy on yourself when you think that, oh my God, I failed at something. Remember Henry Ford, he couldn't get that car out of the garage. I had to break down his garage. I love that story. Anyway, and imagine the moon. You know, my grandmother, she was born in an era where they had donkeys and, you know, no cars, right? But she lived to see a man on the moon and home again, okay? That's a great thing. Imagine, we're going to go to the moon. What a thing to say. Fung Mei, Dr. Law, she'll say, when she was interviewing at Tiffin University, she was saying, in my culture, we look at the moon and say it's beautiful, and we make art, and we write poems. And in America, they say, we're going to go there. So that's just an example of research, you know, the power of research. If you know how to do research, you can do research in any field at all, okay? I'm not an epidemiologist. I don't know about epidemiology, but you know what? I know how to do research, and I know how to learn about epidemiology, so here I am doing research on infectious diseases. And that's the power of research. You can do anything with it. So it's a power, it's a superpower, and I want you to remember that. So everything that you will know and everything that you will learn in your field of study, everything is brought to you by research, okay? So you have to, you know, really revere and learn how to master that area. You people in school now are, you know, the intelligentsia of the world. Most people in the world don't go to college. Most people don't go to high school. You know, most people don't go to grammar school. A lot of the world doesn't know how to read and write. But you will graduate, and you will comprise the most intelligent people, the intelligentsia of the planet. You will be able to read, write, and you'll develop what's most important, critical thinking skills, okay? And that comes from education and research, okay? You will find one day when you go back to your hometown, you'll find your old friends who didn't go to college. And then there you'll be. And you'll be able to look at their beliefs and their attitudes and their behaviors, and you'll say, why do they think that way? Well, because you've educated yourself, okay? You have trained your mind, you have disciplined your mind, and you have developed critical thinking skills, okay? The point of research and the point of a college education is not telling you what to think. It's to tell you how to think, to get you to figure that out and to use your brain and discern things for yourself based on research. So you're giving yourself a gift, and now is the time in your life to invest in yourself, because what you glean from college will help make the world a better place. So when I'm in the old professor's home, I can sit back and relax knowing that my students are helping make the world a better place, and I'll be confident in your cognitive skills that you've acquired as a member of the intelligentsia of the world. Okay, so I'm going to stop the tape right there. So keep posted what's going on in class, and we'll see you in the next class. It's a great day to be a dragon.